Commander Zexnari stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Stellar Dominion, watching Earth rotate slowly on the main view screen. His forearms crossed in what his species considered amusement, while his scaled face twisted into something resembling a smirk. The blue-green planet looked so primitive, so utterly backward compared to the gleaming metal worlds of the Galactic Empire. "Such a pathetic little world," he said, his voice carrying the distinctive buzz of the Craxian language. "They still have forests, actual trees. Can you imagine being so primitive that you haven't even paved over your entire planet yet?" His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Velthar, chittered in agreement. "The reconnaissance reports say they still use projectile weapons, sir. Metal slugs propelled by chemical explosions." "How quaint." The bridge crew erupted in laughter. The Galactic Empire had conquered over 10,000 worlds, each one falling to their superior technology within days. Their plasma weapons could vaporize entire city blocks. Their shields could withstand the heat of a star. Their ships could travel between galaxies in mere weeks. And here was Earth, still playing with gunpowder and rockets that barely reached their own moon. "Shall I prepare the surrender demands, Commander?" Velthar asked. Zexnari waved a dismissive hand. "Why bother? We'll just land a small force and take their leaders. These humans will fall to their knees the moment they see our true power. Send down Beta Squadron. That should be more than enough for these tree-dwelling primitives." The invasion force consisted of 50 of the Empire's finest soldiers, each one standing 8 feet tall and covered in advanced power armor. Their plasma rifles could punch through a meter of solid steel. Their personal shields could deflect anything short of a direct hit from a ship's main gun. They descended toward Earth in gleaming drop pods, confident that this would be the easiest conquest in the Empire's history. The drop pods landed in what the humans called the Amazon rainforest, chosen specifically because the Empire wanted to make a point. If they could conquer Earth starting from its most primitive region, it would send a clear message about the planet's weakness. Lieutenant Krextor was the first to step out of his pod, his heavy boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. He looked around at the dense vegetation and scoffed. "Look at this place. They can't even clear their own land properly. How did these creatures ever achieve spaceflight?" His squad spread out in a standard formation, their weapons at the ready despite the apparent lack of any threat. The jungle was quiet except for the distant sounds of birds and insects. The Empire's soldiers moved forward, pushing through the undergrowth with their powered armor making easy work of the vegetation. "Command, this is Beta Leader," Krextor reported through his communicator. "We've landed successfully, no sign of resistance. These humans probably don't even know we're here yet." But hidden in the canopy above, eyes were watching. Eyes that had been tracking the alien force since the moment their ships appeared in Earth's orbit. Eyes that belonged to soldiers who had trained their entire lives for moments like this. Master Sergeant Jake Ghost Morrison of the United States Army Special Forces lay perfectly still on a branch 30 meters up, his ghillie suit making him virtually invisible among the leaves. His team was spread out through the trees, each man a ghost in the jungle. They'd been inserted into the area within hours of the first alien contact, Earth's governments working together with unprecedented speed in the face of an external threat. "Eyes on 50 tangos," Ghost whispered into his throat mic. "Big boys. Looks like power armor. Plasma weapons from the energy signatures." "Copy that, Ghost Lead," came the response from command. "You are weapons-free. Show them what Earth is made of." Ghost smiled grimly. These aliens had made a crucial mistake. They'd landed in the jungle. His jungle. The place where he and his team had spent years learning every trick, every trap, every way to turn the environment itself into a weapon. He watched as the alien squad continued forward, their formation textbook perfect but completely wrong for jungle warfare. They were staying too close together, relying too heavily on their technology, and most importantly, they weren't looking up. The first alien to die never even knew what hit him. A tungsten penetrator round, fired from a modified anti-materiel rifle, punched through his helmet's weak point where the armor plates joined. The alien dropped like a stone, purple blood spraying from the wound. "Contact! Contact!" Krextor screamed, but he couldn't see where the shot had come from. His squad immediately raised their shields and began firing randomly into the jungle, plasma bolts searing through trees and setting vegetation on fire. But the Special Forces team was already moving. This was their doctrine: shoot and move, never stay in one place. The jungle that seemed like such a hindrance to the aliens was their highway, every vine and branch a path they knew by heart. Another shot, this time from a completely different direction. Another alien fell, the round having found the gap in the armor under the arm, where flexibility was prioritized over protection. The aliens' shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not kinetic projectiles moving at hypersonic speeds. "Where are they?" one of the alien soldiers screamed, spraying plasma fire in all directions. The answer came in the form of a trap. 3 aliens stepped forward, and the ground gave way beneath them. They fell into a pit filled with sharpened stakes, their armor's weight working against them. The stakes, made from a special alloy developed specifically for this threat, punched through their armor like it was paper. "Fall back! Fall back!" Krextor ordered, but it was too late. The jungle had come alive with death. Claymore mines, modified with armor-piercing ball bearings, detonated in sequence. Aliens screamed as the projectiles found every weak point in their armor. Those who survived found themselves entangled in nearly invisible carbon fiber nets that their plasma weapons couldn't cut through. Ghost dropped from his tree, landing silently behind an alien who was frantically trying to free himself from a net. A quick movement, a knife finding the gap where helmet met chest plate, and another invader fell. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 10 minutes. When it was over, 50 of the Galactic Empire's finest soldiers lay dead in the Amazon rainforest, taken down by a force of just 12 humans who understood something the aliens didn't. Technology was only as good as the tactics behind it. "Ghost lead to command," Morrison reported, not even breathing hard. 50 tangos down, no casualties on our side. These guys relied too much on their tech, not enough on actual fighting skills. Back on the Stellar Dominion, Commander Zexnari stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 50 of his soldiers gone. Their life signs had winked out one by one, too fast for command to even process what was happening. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" Velthar was frantically checking the data. "The humans... They used projectile weapons, sir. Our shields aren't calibrated for physical rounds, and they used the environment itself as a weapon. Traps, ambushes, tactics we haven't seen in millennia." Zexnari's scales flushed purple with rage. "Primitives! Lucky primitives! Send down Gamma and Delta squadrons, full battalion strength, and tell them to burn that jungle to the ground!" But on Earth, the message had already spread through the special operations community. The aliens could be killed, they could be beaten, and every special forces unit from every nation was mobilizing, ready to teach the Galactic Empire a lesson they would never forget. In the Amazon, Ghost and his team were already moving to their next position. The aliens thought Earth's wilderness was a sign of weakness, something to laugh at. They were about to learn it was actually Earth's greatest strength. Because humans hadn't just lived in these wild places, they had learned to become one with them, to turn nature itself into the deadliest weapon of all. The Empire wanted a war. Earth's special forces were ready to give them one. As the sun set over the rainforest, casting long shadows through the canopy, more drop pods began their descent. The aliens were coming in force now, hundreds of them, confident that numbers would overcome whatever trick the humans had used. They had no idea they were flying into a coordinated trap that spanned the entire Amazon basin. Brazilian special forces were already in position. British SAS teams were setting up kill zones. Russian Spetsnaz were preparing welcome gifts that would make the aliens wish they had never heard of Earth. The jungle waited, patient and deadly, ready to swallow the invaders whole. And somewhere in the darkness, Ghost checked his rifle and smiled. The aliens thought they were conquering a primitive world. Instead, they were about to get a masterclass in why humans had become the apex predators of their planet. The real war was about to begin, and the Galactic Empire had chosen the worst possible battlefield, a place where technology meant nothing and predatory instinct was everything. They had laughed at Earth's wilderness. Now they would die in it. High above, Commander Zexanari watched the tactical display as hundreds of his soldiers descended toward the jungle. He felt confident that overwhelming force would crush whatever resistance these humans could muster. After all, they were just primitives with projectile weapons. He had no idea that Earth's primitives had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war, and that sometimes the oldest tricks were the deadliest. The jungle waited. The hunters waited. And death waited for anyone foolish enough to underestimate humanity's capacity for violence when protecting their home. The moon hung low over the Congolese jungle as Captain Sarah Viper Chen moved through the undergrowth like a shadow. Her team of 8 operators from various nations followed in perfect silence, their movements synchronized after weeks of joint training. The aliens had made the mistake of landing multiple forces across Earth's wilderness areas, thinking they could establish footholds in what they considered undefended territory. They couldn't have been more wrong. Sarah's earpiece crackled softly. Viper. This is Overwatch. Satellite shows enemy formation 2 clicks north of your position. Looks like they learned from the Amazon. They're moving in a dispersed pattern with aerial drones providing cover. Copy that, Overwatch. What's the count? 200 plus, moving toward the nearest population center. Estimated time to village is 4 hours at their current pace. Sarah smiled coldly. 4 hours was more than enough time. In the flagship above Earth, Commander Zexanari paced back and forth, his claws clicking against the metal floor. The losses in the Amazon had been shocking, but he'd written them off as a fluke. Surely primitives couldn't stand against the Empire's might when properly prepared. Sir, Velthar interrupted his thoughts. Gamma Squadron is making good progress through the African jungle. They've adapted their tactics based on the Amazon incident. Good. And the other landing sites? Delta Squadron has secured a beachhead in what the humans call Siberia. Epsilon is moving through their Canadian forests. Zeta has landed in the mountains they call the Himalayas. Zexanari nodded, feeling more confident. You see, the Amazon was just bad luck. These humans got lucky once, but luck won't save them from the full might of the Empire. But at that moment, halfway around the world in the frozen wastes of Siberia, Delta Squadron was learning that Earth's special forces didn't need luck. The blizzard had come out of nowhere, temperatures dropping to minus 40 degrees Celsius. The aliens' power armor was rated for the cold of space, but space was dry. The combination of extreme cold and driving wet snow was something their designers had never considered. Sir, my joints are freezing up, one soldier reported, his movements becoming sluggish as ice formed in the armor's articulation points. Keep moving, the squad leader ordered. The nearest human settlement is only 10 kilometers away. They never saw the white-clad figures rising from the snow around them. The Siberian winter had been Russia's greatest defender for centuries, and the Spetsnaz knew how to use it. They'd been lying buried in the snow for hours, their body heat masked by special suits, waiting for the aliens to walk into their kill zone. The first alien to die was hit by a titanium ice axe to the neck joint, wielded by a man who'd grown up in these conditions. As the alien fell, his squad mates turned to fire. But their plasma weapons were sluggish in the cold, taking precious seconds to charge up. The Spetsnaz didn't give them those seconds. Specialized cold-weather firearms barked in the blizzard, the sound muffled by the storm. The Russians had learned from the Amazon reports. Aim for the joints, the neck, the places where armor had to be flexible. And in the extreme cold, those joints were becoming more brittle by the minute. "They're everywhere!" an alien screamed, firing wildly into the white void. But the Russians were already gone, vanished back into the storm. This was their element, their ancestral home. They moved through the blizzard like ghosts, striking and disappearing, turning the weather itself into a weapon. Back in the Congo, Sarah's team had finished their preparations. The aliens thought they were being clever, using drones and maintaining distance between squads. But Earth's special forces had been dealing with drone warfare for decades. "Eagle 1, you have the shot?" Sarah whispered. "Affirmative. Wind is 3 knots from the east. I have tone on all 4 drones." High in a tree 2 kilometers away, a sniper with a specialized electromagnetic rifle waited. The weapon was completely silent, firing projectiles that generated localized EMP bursts on impact. One by one, the alien drones fell from the sky, their electronics fried. "Drones down," Eagle 1 reported. "You're clear." Now came the psychological warfare. Sarah's team had spent the last hour setting up what they called a horror show, a demonstration designed to break the enemy's morale before the real fighting even began. The first alien patrol to enter the kill zone stopped dead in their tracks. Hanging from the trees were the bodies of their advanced scouts, strung up with their own equipment. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that the bodies were arranged to spell out a message in the Empire's own language. "Go home." "By the 7 suns," one alien whispered. "How do they know our language?" The answer was simple. Earth's linguists had been working around the clock since first contact, breaking down intercepted communications. Humans were very, very good at learning how to communicate, especially when it came to death threats. The psychological impact was immediate. These aliens had conquered thousands of worlds, but they'd never faced an enemy that turned warfare into art, that understood not just how to kill, but how to terrify. "Sir, perhaps we should wait for reinforcements," one soldier suggested, his voice shaking. The squad leader was about to agree when the forest erupted. This time, the humans weren't using bullets. They'd learned from captured alien equipment that the power armor had one crucial weakness. It was airtight. That meant the aliens were entirely dependent on their suits' air filtration systems. Smoke grenades filled the air, but this wasn't ordinary smoke. Earth's chemical weapons experts had developed a compound that clogged the alien filters while being harmless to humans. Within minutes, aliens were gasping, their suits warning of filter failure. They had 2 choices: suffocate or remove their helmets. Those who chose the latter found themselves breathing Earth's jungle air, thick with humidity and pollen their bodies had never encountered. Allergic reactions set in immediately, their airways swelling shut. Sarah watched through thermal imaging as aliens stumbled around, blind and choking. Her team moved in with silent efficiency, using poisoned darts that penetrated the neck seals of those still helmeted. The toxin was derived from jungle frogs, a paralytic that left the victims aware but unable to move or call for help. In Canada, the story was much the same but with a different flavor. The aliens had landed in what they thought was empty forest, only to discover that the trees themselves seemed to be fighting them. Canadian Special Forces, working with indigenous trackers who knew the land like their own souls, had turned the forest into a living maze. Trails led nowhere. Markers pointed in wrong directions. What looked like solid ground was often cleverly disguised bog that swallowed power-armored soldiers whole. The Canadians didn't even need to fire a shot. They just led the increasingly panicked aliens deeper and deeper into the wilderness, where exposure and exhaustion did their work for them. The Himalayas provided yet another lesson in Earth's environmental hostility. The thin air affected the aliens worse than humans, their larger bodies requiring more oxygen. Altitude sickness set in quickly, made worse by the fact that their power armor couldn't adjust fast enough to the pressure changes. Gurkhas, the legendary mountain warriors, struck from above, using the terrain they'd called home for generations. They triggered avalanches, cut rope bridges, and picked off stragglers with kukri knives that found every weakness in alien armor. The aliens' advanced technology meant nothing when 1,000 tons of snow and rock came crashing down on their heads. Commander Zexanari watched in growing horror as squad after squad went dark. The tactical display showed a massacre in slow motion. His forces weren't being defeated, they were being hunted. "How?" he demanded, slamming his fist on the command console. "They're primitives. They use chemical propulsion and metal slugs. How are they doing this?" "Sir," Velthar said quietly, studying the data, "I think we made an error in our assessment. Yes, their technology is primitive compared to ours. But their tactics, they've been fighting in these environments for thousands of years. They know every trick, every trap. And they're not fighting like a military. They're fighting like predators." "Predators," Zexanari repeated, the word tasting bitter. The Galactic Empire hadn't faced real predators in millennia. They'd become soft, relying on technological superiority to cow enemies into submission. But these humans, they enjoyed the hunt. Reports continued to flood in, each more disturbing than the last. In the Australian outback, his forces were being picked off by snipers who could somehow shoot accurately in 100-degree heat that made the air shimmer. In the Scandinavian forests, enemies on skis moved faster than his troops could track, hitting supply lines and vanishing into the trees. But the worst report came from the Amazon, where the second wave had landed. "Sir," the communication officer said, his voice trembling, "Beta Company is reporting biological warfare." "What kind of biological warfare?" The officer swallowed hard. "The humans have somehow weaponized the local wildlife. Insects that eat through our armor seals. Snakes trained to seek out body heat signatures. Birds that dive bomb our sensors with some kind of acid. And, sir, the jungle itself seems to be fighting us. Vines that move, flowers that release toxic spores when disturbed." Zexanari felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. The Empire had protocols for fighting advanced civilizations, for dealing with energy weapons and shields and faster-than-light capable enemies. But they had no protocol for this. No protocol for an enemy that turned their entire planet into a weapon. "Order all ground forces to withdraw immediately," he commanded, his voice hollow. "Full evacuation." "Sir?" Velthar looked shocked. "We're retreating?" "We're not retreating," Zexanari snarled. "We're regrouping. These humans want to play primitive games? Fine. We'll glass their jungles from orbit, burn their forests to ash, see how their little tricks work when there's nothing left but molten rock." But even as he gave the order, doubt gnawed at him. The humans had shot down several landing craft already with weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate shields. If they could do that, what else were they capable of? Down on Earth, in a hidden command bunker, General Patricia Williams watched the alien forces begin their withdrawal and smiled grimly. "Phase 1 complete," she announced. "They're pulling back to orbit." "Think they'll try orbital bombardment?" her aide asked. Williams nodded. "Count on it. But that's what Phase 2 is for. Send the signal. Time to show them that we've been playing nice so far." Across the globe, hidden silos opened. Weapons that the public had never known existed powered up. Earth's governments had learned long ago that sometimes the best defense was a secret offense. The aliens thought they were fighting primitives who got lucky in jungle warfare. They were about to learn that Earth's primitive weapons included things that would make their plasma rifles look like toys. In the various wilderness battlegrounds, Special Forces teams watched the aliens flee to their extraction points. They didn't pursue. They'd made their point. Earth's wild places weren't weak spots to be exploited. They were killing fields where humans were the apex predators. Ghost, still in the Amazon, keyed his radio. All teams, this is Ghost lead. Phase 1 is complete. The aliens are running scared, but this isn't over. They'll be back, and they'll be angry. Everyone reposition for Phase 2. Around the world, thousands of Special Operations soldiers began moving to new positions. The aliens had learned that Earth's jungles, forests, mountains, and frozen wastes were death traps. Now they would learn that humans had other surprises waiting. The first battle for Earth was over. The real war was about to begin. And somewhere in orbit, Commander Zexnari stared down at the blue-green planet that had humiliated his forces and wondered, for the first time in his long career, if the Galactic Empire had finally bitten off more than it could chew. The wilderness had shown its teeth. Now it was time to show its claws. Commander Zexnari stood before the tactical display, his forearms trembling with rage. The evacuation was complete, but at a cost that made his stomachs churn. Of the 1,000 elite soldiers he'd deployed to Earth's surface, fewer than 200 had made it back alive. The rest lay dead in jungles, forests, mountains, and frozen wastes, killed by an enemy that fought like demons from the old stories. "Prepare the planetary bombardment array," he ordered, his voice cold as the void. "Target their wilderness areas first. I want those jungles turned to glass." "Yes, Commander," Velthar responded, but there was hesitation in his voice. "Sir, should we not demand their surrender first? The Galactic Code requires—" "The Galactic Code assumes civilized enemies," Zexnari roared. "These humans are animals. They've shown no honor. No proper military discipline. They fight from shadows like cowards." As the massive ship's energy weapons began charging, alarms suddenly screamed across the bridge. "Sir! Detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface." "What kind of energy signatures?" Zexnari demanded. The sensor operator's scales had gone pale. "Unknown, sir. But the power levels, they're off the scale." Deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, General Williams watched her own tactical display with grim satisfaction. "All sites report ready, General," her aide confirmed. "The aliens are charging their weapons." "Then it's time they learned lesson number 1 about Earth," Williams said. "Never threaten our home. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez, you may fire when ready." Around the globe, hidden facilities that had been built in absolute secrecy over the past decades came online. The public knew about nuclear weapons, about conventional missiles. They didn't know about Projects Longinus, Tesla's Hammer, or the Thor orbital defense grid. The first surprise came from the oceans. Nuclear submarines, modified with railgun technology that could fire projectiles at 20% the speed of light, surfaced just long enough to unleash hell. Tungsten rods the size of telephone poles screamed up through the atmosphere, their velocity so extreme that they burned like meteors in reverse. The alien shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against pure kinetic force. The first rod punched through the stellar Dominion's belly like it was made of paper, venting 3 decks to space. The second took out their primary weapon array. The third destroyed their faster-than-light drive. "What in the 7 hells?" Zexnari's curse was cut off as his ship bucked like a living thing. "We're taking massive damage. Kinetic strikes from the surface. Our shields can't—" The officer never finished. A rod tore through the bridge, missing Zexnari by meters and vaporizing half his command staff. But that was just the beginning. From hidden silos in the Rocky Mountains, weapons that Tesla himself had theorized but never built came online. Directed energy weapons that didn't just fire lasers, but weaponized lightning itself. Bolts of electricity thick as buildings reached up from Earth's surface, using the ionosphere as a conductor to strike at the alien fleet with the fury of 1,000 thunderstorms. The alien ship's electronics went haywire. Systems that had functioned perfectly for millennia suddenly sparked and died. Ships listed in space, their crews fighting to maintain basic life support as every circuit fried. "Sir, the humans, they're using our own shields against us," Velthar reported, blood streaming from a head wound. "The electromagnetic attacks are creating feedback loops in our systems." In orbit, things got worse for the Empire. What they'd dismissed as primitive satellites suddenly shed their disguises, revealing weapons platforms that had been hiding in plain sight for years. The Thor grid activated, and hundreds of tungsten crowbars began their deadly reign. The alien fleet, which had arrived in perfect formation, was now in chaos. Ships collided as their navigation systems failed. Weapons fired randomly as their targeting computers glitched. And through it all, the kinetic strikes kept coming, methodical and merciless. But Earth wasn't done teaching lessons. In the Amazon, Ghost received new orders. "All teams, Phase 3 is go. Show them what happens when they threaten our home." Across the globe, Special Forces teams activated devices they'd planted during the fighting. The aliens had thought the humans were retreating in disorder. In reality, they'd been leaving presents. The escaped alien ground forces, huddled in their extraction zones waiting for rescue, suddenly found themselves under attack again. But this time, it wasn't bullets or traps. It was something far worse. Nanoweapons, microscopic machines designed to eat through specific materials, had been deployed on every piece of alien equipment the humans could find. Dormant until activated, they now came alive with a hunger for alien alloys. Power armor began dissolving like ice in hot water. Weapons crumbled to dust in alien hands. Even their communication devices fell apart, leaving them truly stranded on a hostile world. "This is impossible," one alien commander screamed, watching his armor disintegrate. "They're primitives. They don't have this technology." But that was the Empire's fatal mistake. They'd judged Earth by its visible technology, by its consumer goods and public infrastructure. They hadn't considered that a species that had spent its entire history finding new ways to kill might have kept its best weapons very, very secret. On the bridge of the dying stellar dominion, Zexnari finally understood. "They've been holding back," he whispered. "This whole time, they've been holding back." "Sir, we need to evacuate," Velthar urged. "The ship is breaking apart." "No," Zexnari said, strange calm settling over him. "Call the retreat. All ships that can still move, retreat to Empire space immediately." "Sir, we came here thinking we were predators finding easy prey," Zexnari continued, watching Earth on the view screen. "But we were wrong. They're not prey. They're apex predators who learned to hide their teeth. And we walked into their territory like fools." As escape pods launched and the few functioning ships began their desperate flight, Earth's weapons continued their relentless assault. But then, as suddenly as it had begun, the attack stopped. General Williams activated a communication channel, broadcasting on all alien frequencies. Her face appeared on every functioning screen in the alien fleet. "This is General Patricia Williams of Earth Defense Command," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority forged in a lifetime of combat. "You came to our world thinking us weak because we still have wilderness. You laughed at our forests, our jungles, our mountains. But those wild places aren't signs of weakness. They're our training grounds. They're where we learn to be what we are." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We've spent our entire evolutionary history in those wild places, learning to hunt, to hide, to kill. Every advancement we've made has been in service of becoming better predators. You thought our projectile weapons were primitive. You didn't realize we'd perfected them over millennia to be exactly what we needed: silent, efficient, deadly." The general's eyes hardened. "This was a warning. We could have destroyed your entire fleet, but we chose not to. Not out of mercy, but to send a message. Tell your empire that Earth is off limits. Tell them that we have weapons you've never imagined, tactics born from millions of years of survival evolution. Tell them that our wilderness isn't something to laugh at. It's what made us the most dangerous species in the galaxy. She leaned forward. And tell them that if they ever threaten our world again, we won't be so gentle. We'll show them why humans are the only species on our planet that kills for sport. The transmission ended. In the escape pods and limping ships, aliens sat in stunned silence. They'd come expecting primitives and found monsters. They'd laughed at Earth's wilderness and discovered it was a factory for creating the deadliest warriors in the galaxy. As the battered remains of the invasion fleet jumped to hyperspace, Zexnari managed one final transmission back to Empire Command. Do not engage Earth. Quarantine the entire system. They're not a primitive world. They're a death world that breeds death worlders. They've had thousands of years to perfect the art of killing, and they've gotten very, very good at it. Back on Earth, the Special Forces teams emerged from their positions. In the Amazon, Ghost looked up at the stars where the alien fleet had been and allowed himself a small smile. "Think they'll be back?" one of his team asked. "Doubt it," Ghost replied. "But if they do, we'll be ready. We've been practicing in these jungles for a long time. Wouldn't want all that training to go to waste." Around the world, the message was spreading through military channels. Earth had won its first interstellar war not through superior technology, but through superior tactics and the will to use them. The aliens had expected soldiers. Instead, they'd found predators wearing human skin. In the aftermath, world leaders met in emergency sessions. The secret was out. Earth had weapons and capabilities far beyond what the public knew, but more importantly, they'd proven something to the galaxy. Humans weren't primitive. They were patient predators who had learned to hide their true nature behind a facade of civilization. But when threatened, when their home was at stake, that facade fell away to reveal the hunters they'd always been. The Galactic Empire had learned a valuable lesson. Some worlds weren't worth conquering. Some species weren't worth fighting. And Earth, with its wild places and its wild people, was definitely both. In his escape pod, racing toward safety, Zexnari recorded one final log entry. "Let it be known throughout the Empire. Earth is not a garden world to be harvested. It's a predator's den, and its guardians have teeth. They turned their entire planet into a weapon and themselves into living weapons. Stay away from Earth. Stay away from the humans. They're not primitives playing with fire. They're the ones who learned to burn worlds." As the alien fleet vanished into the void, Earth's defenders stood down. The weapons returned to hiding. The special forces melted back into their bases. To any outside observer, Earth looked just as it had before, a blue-green world with too much wilderness and not enough technology. But now the galaxy knew better. Earth's wilderness wasn't a weakness. It was a warning. "Here be dragons," it said. "Here be monsters. Here be humans." And in jungles and forests around the world, the next generation of warriors was already training, learning the ancient arts of death that had served humanity so well. Because the universe was vast and full of threats, and Earth would always need its predators. The Galactic Empire never came back. Word spread through the stellar community like wildfire. Earth was off limits. Not because of treaties or diplomacy, but because of fear. Fear of a species that had turned killing into science and warfare into art. Years later, alien children would be told stories of the Death World and its Death Worlders, of the planet where the wilderness itself fought back and the natives were more dangerous than any weapon. They would learn to recognize the human symbol, a blue-green sphere, and know to stay away. Because Earth's special forces had taught the galaxy an important lesson. Technology could make you powerful, but evolution made you dangerous. And humans had evolved in the most dangerous classroom of all, a world that had been trying to kill them since they first climbed down from the trees. The Empire had laughed at Earth's wilderness. No one was laughing anymore.